what motivated you to start training? At what age?
I started training when I was 11 years old.
Okay.
I used to go to school, Booker T. Washington, and originally, like I was saying before, I originally was interested in Kung Fu because of the Channel 5 Kung Fu movie theater. So that was my interest. One of my friends back in the day, his name was Pascal Albert. He had took me to Jeff Canada's school. So I looked at it and I was like, what is this? This ain't Kung Fu. I wasn't interested. Long story short, I ended up sticking with the class and I stuck with it ever since. So I started training when I was 11 years old. So right now I've been training for 39 years. So I've been in the system for quite a while. I was also ranked in the tournament circuit. So I had pretty much the privilege of doing both. I used to do tournament point fighting, and I also, did the club. And, part of the article that we were doing.
Before you forget, make sure you like and hit that subscribe button for more.
I was trying to tell people the difference between point fighting and club fighting as two totally different worlds. So my success, I wouldn't say success. I said, my career more or less didn't end up with point fighting, even though I could still do it. It ended up, I got more of my exposure through working these nightclubs, working Korean clubs, working with Puffy, working all these crazy events that I've done with Glen, Julio, all these other guys that are martial artists and things like that. I used to work with Black Belt Security at Callaloo, so most of my career stuff was more based through the clubs. I did more damage in the clubs than I did in the point tournament circuit, even though I was pretty good at it, but it didn't expand the way I would like it to have.
Right.
Wow.
What motivated you to get into martial arts?
My motivation, to be honest with you, I used to get bullied a lot when I was in, from like junior high school all the way like probably to high school. I used to get bullied quite a bit, and I kind of got tired of the whole bullying thing, so I took it to that extreme where I said to myself, I'm not going to let nobody else do this to me no more. And it's unfortunate that you have to pick up stuff like that. I mean, it's not like what we have today with this whole cyberbullying is like totally different level, but we had it back then. The only difference is we didn't have cameras and we have a platform. We have stuff like that. So either you fought, you cried, and you got over it, and then tomorrow we'll do it all over again. So that was more of my biggest motivation. And then, once I stuck with Jeffrey Canada, which was more like a huge youth advocate, I said, you know what, this is my passion, this is my thing, and I stuck with it ever since. And it, it's like one of those things was you're never gonna get rid of, no matter how old you get. I'm 51 years old right now, and the combinations and those things still jump in my head. So that motivation is still there.
Wow. Very good. Very good. What a lot of people don't know is that the martial arts in the industry that we came up in, really saved a lot of our lives, because if we had not been as efficient in the martial arts as we became through our hard training, it was dangerous times, especially back then when we were coming up. The bouncers now, they don't have to worry much because, the laws are different, although it's still dangerous, but right. We were able to really use our art, where these guys, they don't really get a chance to use their art like we did coming up. Does everybody agree with me on that one?
No, I definitely agree. And even if you did use it years ago, you weren't put in jail for beating somebody up because they deserved it.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's why a lot of guys don't use it, because they're afraid to go to jail. Whereas back then we got away with the stuff we got away with was insane.
Right. I wouldn't say it's not that they don't want to use it. I think the platform has changed because of the cell phones and everything else that comes out. The exposure to lawsuits for these club owners and everything else is worse now than what it was then. Back then, we used to have to worry about the little cameras they had outside the place. So, you do most of the damage either inside or something like that. Now, it's right there in your face. Somebody picked it up, somebody recorded it, and nobody wants to do that. So yeah, the laws have changed big because of social media and everything else.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We didn't have cell phones. Nobody was taking a cell phone every time you did something.
Right.
Well, because if that was the case back then, you know how many highlight reels we would have had.
Man. I can only imagine how
on
many
social media. Oh man, I remember one time, and once again, I say this with all humility, and it's not bragging. I remember one time at a club called Barnes International Disco. This boxer, and we're going to talk about it another time, but this boxer came and he was a little drunk and he was supposed to have a fight the following week, and this guy talked so much trash, and it was maybe 500-600 people. I still get people texting me to this day, you know, remember that time when that boxer came at you and he wouldn't stop yelling and screaming at you until you couldn't take it no more. And I remember flattening that boxer in the middle of 45th Street in Broadway at Barnes International Disco. You guys might have been kind of young to remember that disco. Because I worked there. That's how I met Timok from The Last Dragon from 1981 to 1983. And I remember I flattened that boxer out with a reverse punch, and the crowd outside went absolutely bananas. And I don't like to, talk about stuff like that, but that's one time I wish somebody would have had a cell phone. Out of all the fights I had, that was one time I said to myself, man, I wish they would have had a cell phone that day when I did that, But that's funny. Go ahead.
Do either of you remember years ago when if someone did have, let's say, one of those clunky video recorders, bouncers would chase them up the block, or if they were taking photos, they would take their camera, take their camera, break their camera because they were taking photos of us and we didn't know why. Do you remember all that?
Right. Sure. I remember that. I remember that, man.
Yeah, that was fun.
I think I was telling Jacob yesterday that the way it worked is if someone, let's say from another club who was whatever the club is, it's a Friday, Saturday night. If they were found even upwards of a block and a half away from our club handing out flyers, we'd see patrons coming in with flyers from different clubs. And we would ask them, where's this from? And they said, some guy gave it to me about a block and a half up. But it was for the same night, the Friday, Saturday night, and our kind of crowd, the managers or the head of security would send somebody up there. Yeah, go through all their flyers in the garbage. And the guys, of course, would get like mouthy, like, you can't do that. And then, a bang, 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 martial arts, whatever it is. These kids that get beaten up for stealing our crowd, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I remember that. That's a good point, because I remember that as you were speaking, Glenn. I was remembering when that used to happen, because I used to be like yourself. I used to be the head of security at many clubs, and I would be the one that have to tell them, listen, tell that guy, because they wouldn't stand directly in front of the club, but some of them would be disrespectful and stand right out in front of the club when people were coming in, and they would hand them a flyer, and man, we would be brutal on them. Most of the time, if they were respectful, they would stand up the block and hand out flyers. Then I would send one of the bouncers, listen, don't do that here, man. Just, go somewhere else. But you get guys that really got gung-ho and come in front of the club, and boy, they would pay for it every single time.